it's Dins, What's Shaking. The video you're about to watch was actually shot a week ago, but as you can see, we're still awesomely dealing with the aftermath of the flooding in my apartment. It's pretty great. The video, when I say this week, I mean last week, and when I say last week, I mean the week before that. You get the idea. These are my new friends of the day, helping get stuff out of the storage unit that completely soaked through. How's it going, guys?
Good. Potato, how's it going? How's it going, baby? How's it going?
This is going on in my room. And of course nobody's wearing a mask because Governor Abbott just released the mask order on the state to distract us from what a fucking tool he is. So if you want to find out why my opinion of the governor is so negative, just keep on watching. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go back to my bizarre life. Hello, it's Lindsay. I live in Texas, and as you may have heard, we have had a very intense week. It's a happy coincidence that my camera is pointed this direction, because this is exactly where my living room flooded 3 days ago. My complex shut off all the water, while they repair all the broken pipes from the freezing storm, but some people have gotten impatient and creative, and figured out how to turn the water back on, so that they can feel like they live in the first world again. Because of those people, I had the pleasure of getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning to discover that my living room looked like a scene from Titanic. Behind me, you can see the chunk of wall that they had to take out. Also, the only thing that I own, the means to my livelihood, my computer, also in this room. So while most of the ego chatter nonsense in the news doesn't really affect me very much, this story sure as shit did. But being freezing cold without power next to candlelight, it really was the perfect time to watch Rant.
Because I'm used to relying on intellect.
So of course low-income and minority neighborhoods that were already reamed by COVID are Dante's iced over ninth circle of hell. This is from New York Magazine. The state that produces more energy than any other is now seeing rolling blackouts and power prices 10,000% above normal. In Houston, 1 homeless person has died from exposure to sub-freezing temperatures, 4 people were killed in a fire attempting to use a fireplace to stay warm, and 2 more died from carbon monoxide poisoning trying to keep warm in a running car. Like, I can't help it. I'm like picturing this couple, like they just got married and their families didn't approve and they just got their new house and their new life started in Texas. The husband was excited about living a place with a private grid so that we wouldn't be under the mercy of the feds. Until that one cold night. These are real people. That's not funny. I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. It is really, really sad. The clearest perspective on this mess comes from one Joshua D. Rhodes, PhD, a research fellow at the Weber Energy Group at the University of Texas at Austin, and a founding partner of IdeaSmiths LLC. His current research is in the area of smart grid and the bulk electricity system, electricity down, death bad, electricity by ERCOT, resign yes. I'm not gonna lie, this whole story has reduced my respect for Governor Abbott. Governor Greg Abbott said the leadership of the public entity responsible for managing the state's electric grid needs to resign and have been withholding information from him and the public. ERCOT has not been transparent, he said. They're not providing information either to you, the public in Houston, or even the governor of Texas. We deserve answers as to why they didn't have backup power.
I love to dance a little sidestep.
But unfortunately for Governor Abbott, ERCOT has been exhaustingly forthcoming about everything that went wrong here. And the fact that he's talking to Sean Hannity, hiding behind a change in policy that has not gone into effect yet, sort of kills his credibility. In an interview with Sean Hannity, Abbott gave an explanation for why his state's current crisis exposes the flaws in a massive shift toward renewable energy.
This shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America.
Close it down.
He noted that the wind and solar energy that was shut down amid the polar vortex were collectively more than 10% of our power grid, and when they failed, it resulted in a system-wide collapse.
It just shows that fossil fuel is necessary for the state of Texas as well as other states to make sure that we'll be able to heat our homes in the wintertime and cool our homes in the summertime.
The only thing that I can think of to say is that everything that he said is befuddlingly untrue. A variety of misleading claims spread on social media around renewable energy, with wind turbines and the Green New Deal getting much of the attention. There has been a deluge of right-wing voices immediately blaming hippies for this. A viral photo of a helicopter de-icing a wind turbine was shared with claims it showed a chemical solution being applied to one of the massive wind generators in Texas. The only problem, the photo was taken in Sweden years ago, not in the US in 2021. The helicopter sprayed hot water onto the wind turbine, not chemicals. Never forget, people can and do make stuff up. Other social media users, including Republican U.S. Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado, puzzlingly labeled the Green New Deal as the culprit. I don't think I'm saying that right. Boebert? I really hope that's not your name. Anyway, she tweeted on Monday that the proposal was proven unsustainable as renewables are clearly unreliable. As soon as the lights went out, the right started tilting at windmills like Don Quixote. Don Quixote? Attacked windmills because he thought it would make him famous? It's an expression about attacking imaginary enemies. In other words, perfect. We should never build another wind turbine in Texas. Read a Tuesday Facebook post from Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller. The experiment failed big time. This is a perfect example of the need for reliable energy sources like natural gas and coal, tweeted U.S. Senator Steve Daines, a Republican from Montana, on Tuesday. On Fox News, Tucker Carlson asserted the windmills failed like the silly fashion accessories they are, and people in Texas died. If Tucker Carlson had not already secured his place in hell, hopefully that did it. Never forget that no matter how established a public person appears to be, just say whatever they want with no basis whatsoever. The windmills froze, so the power grid failed. Rather than celebrate and benefit from their state's vast natural resources, politicians took the fashionable route and became recklessly reliant on so-called alternative energy, meaning windmills. Well, no. I feel that well no, like in my soul. He had to have said this shit knowing absolutely nothing about the story, because it did not take long to find that ERCOT is totally forthcoming and had nothing to do with windmills, and the absolute reactionary explosion of bullshit it's very now, isn't it? So I like how Bloomberg said here, good public policy matters. When someone pretends that pandemics and climate change aren't threats or simply don't exist, it should send chills down your spine. Facts. Like us in Texas, we are terrified, and a lot of us are leaving. I also like that this quote says, that is egregiously false. This is responding to the Tucker thing. Wind power generation always tends to decline during the winter, but actually on Monday, wind was exceeding its expected output. But yeah, we're probably going to talk about that more later, but not only did wind not cause the problem, it helped. So I think it is our civic duty to publicly call out and mock anyone who blames this mess on renewable energy. Not because of politics or votes or Obama, because millions of people froze for a week, and renewable energy had nothing to do with it. In fact, we should really be making memes about blaming windmills for everything now. Don Quixote and otherwise. If people aren't already, get on that. Frozen wind farms were just a small piece of Texas's power woes. Texas relies on wind power for only about 25% of its total electricity. But ERCOT expected it to only be 7% this winter. I have seen variations on that number in other places, but low. And back to Dan Woodfin, it appears that a lot of the generation that has gone offline today has been primarily due to issues on the natural gas system. Did wind turbines freeze? Technically, yes, but while ice has forced some turbines to shut down, just as a brutal cold wave drives record electricity demand, wind only comprises 25% of the state's energy mix this time of year. The majority of outages overnight were plants fueled by natural gas, coal, and nuclear, which together make up more than 2/3 of the power generation during winter. And this macro system engineer dude said only 4 gigawatts of wind failed due to icing. How much thermal energy went down? 26 gigawatts. And before the entire array of right-wing press breaks into a yeah, but still, some people are even saying that the wind generated more than the 7% expectation, so put that in your narrative and smoke it. Even with the weather conspiring against it, wind still appears to have produced significantly more capacity in Texas during the current crisis than anticipated. In 2011, the last time Texas's grid suffered a major failure, wind power wasn't even in use. The causes of Texas's power failure are complex, but laying the blame on wind alone is silly. In reality, which is where we all live, by the way, most of us, failures in natural gas, coal, and nuclear energy systems were responsible for nearly twice as many outages as frozen wind turbines and solar panels. The performance of wind and solar is way down the list among the smaller factors in the disaster that we're facing. It just goes on and on like this. Blaming renewables for the blackouts is really a red herring. Tilting at windmills is like tilting at windmills. Back to our buddy Joshua, it's not like we were relying on it to ride us through this event. Nor would it have been able to save us if it were operating at 100% capacity right now. We just don't have enough of it. It is irrelevant! And so is the Green New Deal. According to Mark Jacobson, director of the Atmosphere Energy Program and professor of civil and environmental engineering at Stanford University, and pretty much everybody else it seems, the Green New Deal is irrelevant as no version of it exists in Texas or nationwide. Like, what if you were living in a village on Hoth and a bunch of stormtroopers showed up and cut off your power? And you ask them, why is the Empire doing this? And they're like, yeah, this totally sucks. Goes to show you why the rebels are so dangerous. The rebels aren't doing this. Like, this happened on your watch. You're doing this. We don't have time for this bullshit. We just had to kill and gut our family tauntaun to huddle in its guts and keep warm. So don't let them mislead you so blatantly. You're better than that. Renewable energy is a popular scapegoat for the new problems as more frequent extreme weather events strain infrastructure. It's easy to focus on the thing that you can see changing as the source of why an outcome is changing. The reality is that managing our systems is becoming more and more difficult, and that's something that is easy to blame on the reaction to it, but it's not actually the root cause. Like, we're not having crazy weather shit because of the windmills. We need windmills and renewable energy because the fucking world is dying. Jesus Christ. But we gotta play the blame game, so let's play. It's not like this is a big mystery. We know what caused the problem. And the runner-up is Texas lording over its power grid like we are Wakanda, and our precious, super independent oil reserves and other various power sources are vibranium. ERCOT is largely disconnected from neighboring states. It is entirely contained within Texas because the state wanted to avoid federal regulation during the New Deal, where other states can and do buy large amounts of power from neighbors when disaster strikes. In Texas, this is difficult because there are only a few connections to other states in Mexico. Texas keeping its power separate is often framed as the nefarious culprit in this mess. But as far as I can see it, the more pieces the grid is broken into, the better. They should just be friendly to each other, or like not completely disconnected, but like separately operated and managed. Is that not possible? This is not my field. All of nature, from the gene pool to your investment portfolio, is strengthened by diversification. Right now, Texas has egg on its face, but if the situation were reversed and some federal system fucked up everyone else's power, in that scenario, then Texas would have protected itself from an evil totalitarian regime, which I'm sure is far closer to Texas's self-concept. Other states can get power from neighboring states, but Texas was all like, fuck you, you're not even my real dad. After the grid failed during the 2011 freeze, industry observers pointed out that power plants for every stripe in Texas weren't properly winterized and would need to be in order to avoid future outages. Were they winterized? No. Now with its power generation frozen, go it alone Texas is turning to the federal government and the Biden administration for a helping hand. So sassy, Bloomberg. But we deserve it. Though I might have a different angle on this than you might expect. They always try to tell us that these things are really complicated. Only an expert can deal with the problem. But I always say the heart of every issue that blossoms out of the manure of human troubles is about fear versus love, and this is no exception. Fear says, protect Texas. We gotta keep all of our power to ourselves. Love says, let's trust each other and share. And that's why Texas looks like the asshole right now. Texas is resisting love. They're choosing fear over their love and connection with the rest of the country. People don't like that. Texas parades its power bubble around like big swinging testicles of freedom and courage, even though it is entirely fear-based. Heroes aren't hoarders. Sorry, Texas, you're confused like a lot of people are, because self-defense is not self-love. Self-defense is fear. Love always is and always will be the opposite direction. Love is a badass. Fear is a little bitch. But I'm not suggesting that Texas should join the main grid right now. They aren't ready for it. Though I do believe we should all strive for a love-based world, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Sometimes we must make fear-based choices to protect ourselves, to protect our loved ones. But if we continue to believe that we aren't sacrificing the love in our lives to do so, society will have problems like this over and over and over again. It's probably good and bad. The fact that Texas has the ability to do its own thing, and we're not under federal jurisdiction for the decisions that we make in our system, so people in Washington can't tell us how to run our power grid, has an appeal to a certain Texas mentality, if you will. Right now, it sure would be helpful if we had connections to other grids, because there are other grids on the East Coast coast right now that have plenty of power that could be providing some energy if we had the extension cords to reach them, but we currently don't have those, so we're not able to access that. I'm assuming the extension cord thing is not as a metaphor. The quote is lacking tone. But yeah, how about that? There's two sides to this fucking coin. But that's just the runner-up problem. That's not the big problem. So our buddy Jesse Jenkins from Stanford, I'm sure you're shocked, but he points to the natural gas generators. The systems that get gas from the earth aren't properly built for cold weather. Operators in one of the most productive oil fields in the world are particularly struggling to bring natural gas to the surface, as cold weather and snow close wells or cause power outages that prevent pumping the fossil fuels from the ground. So it's a very physical thing that's going wrong here. Gathering lines freeze and the wells get so cold that they can't produce. And pumps use electricity, so they're not even able to lift that gas and liquid because there's no power to produce. Oh, what a clusterfuck. So the nature of how natural gas extraction works is extremely vulnerable to the cold. Texas does not have as much storage capacity as other states because the resource-laden state can easily pull it from the ground when it's needed. Usually. Physically withdrawing stored natural gas is slower than the immediate, ready supply of lines from production and is insufficient to make up for the dramatic declines in production. So it's kind of like when you're looking for a pair of scissors and you realize it would be way easier to buy a new pair on Amazon than to keep looking for the ones you already have. So there's the big problem, frozen equipment. And it seems to be solvable. We need better gas storage systems, and we need a more efficient way to extract stored gas. And I'm assuming that this is what they mean when they say winterizing the equipment. Another problem that makes things a little bit trickier is the difference between a Texas winter and a Texas summer. Places usually either get really, really cold during winter or get really, really, really hot in summer. But if Texas is going to start doing both like a dickhead, our power needs are going to get really complicated. It's like trying to build a habitat that could accommodate both a bird and a fish. And I think Rhodes is doing a great job of explaining the tricky balancing act that ERCOT has to do here. Our electricity system is built around meeting our summer peak demand, the hot August afternoons when everyone wants air conditioning. I like how here he points out that on the hottest summer day, 105 degrees outside, and you want to bring it down to 75, that's a 30-degree difference. But if it's 10 degrees outside and you're trying to bring it up to 70, that's a 60-degree difference. And because Texas normally deals with hot summers, our houses are designed to keep heat out and get it out as fast as we can. And this isn't just a Texas thing. Grids all over the country are made to accommodate the expectations that they have for that particular region. All of that infrastructure is site-specific. I would assume it's more expensive. We could winterize wind turbines better, but it would cost more money. We can winterize pipes on power plants, but it would cost more money. We have to decide what level of risk are we willing to take and what are we willing to pay for. Could we have built a grid that would have fared better during this time? Of course we could have. But we could also build a car that could survive every crash you could possibly throw at it. But it would be very expensive and not many people would probably be able to afford it. I know we get mad when people choose money, but okay, imagine that you got an insurance plan that didn't cover a certain disease. Let's call it fucking freezing-itis. A week later, your kid gets hit with the freeze disease, dies. Very sad. How heavy would that child's death weigh on your conscience? It might sound like a leading question, but it honestly isn't. Perfectly rational people with full-sized hearts are faced with decisions like this all the time. I just pulled the plug on my dog's insurance because I'm way too broke to afford a luxury like dog health insurance. But there are no guarantees that he won't need it tomorrow, an hour from now. I mean, who knows? Shit happens. Does that mean that I'm failing my dog? So it totally depends on how much evidence you had that the kid was likely to get that disease and what resources that you had at your disposal to get that insurance. Did you cut down the insurance for your next round of lip fillers? Or so that same kid could eat? So Rhodes has a point here. There is a limit to how much you can possibly enhance something, and that limit is generally determined by budget, because money is our agreed upon medium of trade. I love this quote from the Washington Post. It really sums up the problem. What has sent Texas reeling is not an engineering problem, nor is it the frozen wind turbines blamed by prominent Republicans. It's a financial structure for power generation that offers no incentives to power plant operators to prepare for winter. In the name of deregulation and free markets, critics say, Texas has created an electric grid that puts an emphasis on cheap prices over reliable service. You can't argue that that's not what happened because That's exactly what happened. If you tell someone you and your family will be taken care of if you work in service of this system, in other words, if you give them a steady paycheck, then even if they do their jobs to the best of their ability, we still might get fucked. The systems that hold our power grid together are designed to save money, not to save people.
A tree is worth more financially dead than alive, in a world in which a whale is worth more dead than alive. For so long as our economy works in that way and corporations go unregulated, they're going to continue to destroy trees, to kill whales, to mine the earth, and to continue to pull oil out of the ground, even though we know it is destroying the planet, and we know that it's going to leave a worse world for future generations.
So Texas and the rest of the US are in a tight spot. We must slash our use of fossil fuels to forestall catastrophic damage to human society, very much including weather disasters that knock out basic services, but that means adding a lot of new renewables to the grid, which will require big upgrades. Oh man, we're really in it. So the big question to me at this point is, how much warning did ERCOT have? We know there was a freeze in 2011. How similar was it? Did they learn anything? And upgrades were made after the 2011 winter storm, but many Texas power generators still have not made all the investments necessary to prevent these sort of disruptions. Why not? I really don't like this part of the story. Texas officials knew winter storms could leave the state power grid vulnerable, but they left the choice to prepare for harsh weather up to the power companies, many of which opted against the costly upgrades. That, plus a deregulated energy market largely isolated from the rest of the country's power grid, left the state alone to deal with the crisis, experts said. Ooh, not a good look for deregulation, my dudes. Instead of taking any regulatory action, we ended up getting guidelines that were unenforceable and largely ignored in power companies' rush for profit. Policy observers blamed the power system failure on the legislators and state agencies who they say did not properly heed the warnings of the previous storms or account for more extreme weather events warned by climate scientists. Instead, Texas prioritized the free market. So this is why people are saying that Texas cares more about profits than they do about people. And that just makes me really sad. People are mad that Texas didn't make a fear choice on behalf of the people and instead made a love choice on behalf of the power companies. Let me explain what I mean by that. As a general rule, I don't like regulations. Regulations are fear-based, not love-based. And people get confused about this because they think self-defense is self-love. They think that defending their children is loving their children. But you can't hug a child and put them in a protective bubble at the same time. You can't be hurt, you can't be touched. So believe it or not, ERCOT and the state of Texas made a loving choice. Texas showed these power companies love by trusting them to make the right decision. And that love made Texas vulnerable because that's what love does. And when you show love to someone who responds with fear, which is what these power companies did by choosing profits over making sure their people were safe. I need profits more than they need power. That's separation. That's fear. You may pay the price, but you did the right thing for society as a whole. You might get killed, but that's how you die a martyr. The problem is the people of the state of Texas didn't realize that that's what they were agreeing to when they decided to live here. Great relevant line from Hamilton. We want our leaders to save the day, but we don't get a say in what they trade away. So the people showed love and trust to Texas. Texas showed love and trust to the power companies, and the power companies fucked us all. Probably unwittingly because they don't see how the fear-love chain works, which is why I'm explaining it to you. From my standpoint, my morality, Texas does need to put regulations in place. The trust has been broken. Not because they did the wrong thing. Showing those businesses trust was well-intentioned. But because apparently the power companies of Texas that didn't winterize their equipment are not ready for love and oneness. And we can't fix that right now. I mean, some of you watching this are probably like, well, love and oneness, what is she talking about? I'm talking about everything. If their hearts aren't open to giving up profits for the sake of the people, or who knows, maybe the people that didn't winterize their equipment didn't have a choice for some reason. I don't want to judge people I know nothing about. I just know that's where the chain ended. The point is, if somebody's not ready for love and oneness, if they're not ready to make themselves vulnerable in that way, which is a requirement, you cannot change that. You cannot make someone else flip that switch. That's why regulations are there. Like, we can't convince this person to stop, but what we can do is reduce the amount of damage that they can do. Trying to change them, trying to fix the unfixable, puts you in resistance to reality, which we talked about in the Teal video. If you put yourself in resistance to reality, you are going to lose because reality always wins. And the weird thing is, love is actually reality. The sooner mankind figures that out, the better. And anybody who chooses money over the welfare of another human being, it's because they see themselves as separate from their fellow man. They believe that their prosperity relies on the hardship of others. that nobody can expand without something else contracting. And that's kind of an illusion of the 3D world. I mean, any parent of multiple children can tell you that they don't run out of love when they have more kids. They run out of time, but not love. So I feel bad blaming ERCOT or Texas for this because they trusted their own people. It's honestly really sad. Mother Nature has pivoted from offering lessons via a pandemic about the importance of high-quality public health infrastructure to a new tutorial via savage weather about the importance of flexible and well-managed energy infrastructure. Diversification, my dudes. So what should we be focused on right now? It's a big story, there's a lot going on, but people froze their asses off. It's not okay, we gotta do something. What can we do? What is fixable? My honest answer? We need to fucking winterize the shit out of all that equipment. Is the system fucked? Entirely improperly. We need to get more renewable energy systems in place because climate change is a thing. But we have to do it as quietly as possible. Ideally, Tucker Carlson will just wake up one day and we'll be like, surprise, renewable energy is just as reliable as traditional energy now. We switched everything out while you were sleeping. All of your everything works exactly the same way. No need to invoke your fear of change, and you can't say shit. But probably not. And I'm sure that this will shock you, but even TechCrunch points out how renewable energy might be the solution to our problems, not the cause. Oh, poops. That was a dead battery, not a power outage. But at the moment, right now, it sounds more plausible than undoing decades of cultural and psychological conditioning that says hippies bad, power good. And don't get me wrong, the silly hippies are not off the hook. The right are making snap judgments about windmills. Y'all are making snap judgments about climate change too. Is it possible that the freeze was caused by climate change? It's a definite maybe on that one. The warming of the Arctic, which is heating up about twice as fast as the rest of the planet, yikes, seems to have destabilized that pattern. That leads to what's happening now, freezing air spills down from the high Arctic, blasted south by an unusually flappy jet stream. Flappy. That's just a funny word. There's still some dispute over this particular argument among climate scientists, and it may turn out to be mistaken in some way, but we do know for sure that higher temperatures mean more extreme weather in general, even if this particular disaster turns out to be unrelated to climate change. Future mass power outages will be. For sure. Tough pill to swallow. If you instinctively shouted climate change without actually looking into it, check yourself. But the point is, it's human instinct to attach an event to a pattern chain in the mind. And though it's reasonable to trust that chain, if the stakes are high, verify. So, am I fucking done talking yet? In conclusion, Texas largely relies on natural gas for power, and the equipment wasn't ready for the extreme cold. The individual power companies that were trusted by the state to make the best decisions for their area failed us. The isolationist grid exacerbated the problem by disconnecting us from possible assistance.
You know, it was a team effort, and I guess it took every player working together to lose this one.
No windmills. But it's my channel, and I do what I want, so I'm going to get on my soapbox at the end, even though I don't think that we should be focusing on big picture problems right now. This is my channel. I'm going to talk about the big picture problems that I care about. Kick-ass quote from Alan Watts: "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." These systems, including the economic system, were put in place to serve human beings, were they not? If they aren't doing that anymore, why do we continue to excuse and defend them? Everything moves on from everything in this universe. Nothing is permanent. Just because it's time to move away from these things doesn't mean that we hate them or that they're the bad guy. It's just they did their thing and now they've worn out their use to us. It's time to make a change that's gonna suck for a little while before it actually makes things better. I recently had to make a similar call on a micro scale. This year I cut off contact from an abusive parent that has bankrolled me my whole life. And throughout the first year where I have been completely cut off from my family's support, I've gone through this historical blackout, an unprecedented pandemic. I lost my income stream. That situation is changing, though you are very invited to leave a tip. Link is in the description. My dog lost all feeling in the lower half of his body. He can't feel himself peeing or pooping, and he needs around-the-clock support, and he drags his feet on pavement until they bleed, and I'm still kind of working on figuring out solutions for that. He paces when I talk a lot. My apartment flooded. We already covered that. I finally confronted my alcoholism and went through rehab. At one point, my car got towed from lack of payments.
Is that Lindsay's car? It was Lindsay's car.
But we ended up getting an extension plan and it's fine now, but that was awesome. Guess how many times I've regretted my decision of walking away from my mother? About as many times as you should do meth. busting out of my gilded cage was scary and excruciating. There have been days when I wasn't sure if I should sell my car or maybe I need to hang on to it in case I need to live in it. The teat that I was attached to was feeding me poison. Sometimes long-term survival means you need to take the hit now so you are truly resilient later. It's time to Marie Kondo our infrastructure. We need to thank fossil fuels and our current economic model for everything that it's done for us that got us to where we are, and let them go. Texas didn't want to be dependent on the feds, so it looks like that rejection caused this problem. But widening our net of systems of dependency can't possibly be the right answer. In fact, I would love it if every state had their own grid, so bullshit decisions made up top wouldn't trickle shit down to so many helpless people. I feel like a fucking dead seal being batted around by a bunch of orcas. And hot take, I think we would be more cooperative with each other if we were more separated. Because then people in states full of people who think nothing like me wouldn't have a say in my daily affairs. You like your neighbors a lot more when they're not blaring loud music, am I right? I don't want the same people who bring snowballs into the Senate to make decisions about where I get my electricity from. And I'd be quicker to offer aid to a right-wing state if they didn't have the power to take away my marijuana and Planned Parenthood. And if you're like, then why are you in Texas? I'm trying like hell to get out, especially now. This didn't happen because of the Green New Deal or wind turbines. It happened because we couldn't serve humanity and the almighty dollar at the same time. Money is, I can get people to help me without being nice to them. And the fact that the elected governor is pointing at wind turbines, the issue with the highest emotions and the least evidence, makes me want to get out of this state as quickly as humanly possible.
Ooh, I love to dance a little side step.
I'm really trying to move to Portland, if anybody can help. My income is now good, my credit score is still not great, and I'd really love to live in an intentional community full of bohemian weirdos, if that's an option. This video is going on the internet, I don't know who I'm gonna meet. Blaming the green energy movement or blaming ERCOT feels really good, but when you zoom in on the individuals, they made choices that made sense with all the pros and cons they were up against. This is definitely a systemic failure, but we can't accomplish a complete forest overhaul, so we need to focus on the trees immediately in front of us. If we skip to the final boss before we do all the levels to get there, then we're gonna get creamed. The people that we would need to convince to accomplish a forest overhaul are not ready to be convinced. It's not gonna happen, and we can't force them to be ready. Climate change is one big prisoner's dilemma. We are forced to ask, am I willing to make myself vulnerable? Knowing that it will only do any good if every single one of us accepts the same amount of personal risk. We have to hold hands and say, I'm gonna take this leap of faith, and I trust you all to catch me. I trust that if I make these sacrifices, if my family makes these sacrifices, every single one of us will rise up together. This is the final exam of this stage of human consciousness. If we pass, we survive. And if we fail, we don't. And if we don't let go of fear, we will fail hard and permanently. Repeat after me, kids. It is possible to respond to a man-made problem without judging or blaming a single person. So let's be bigger than Twitter ego chatter about this. Let's fix the gas freezing problem. We'll work up to the bigger stuff. The world will not end if you change your mind, but it might if you don't. I'm sure some of you are already trying to figure out what ism I am. What is this video trying to indoctrinate you into? Is there a The Secret logo tucked around anywhere? I don't know what ism I am, and I am in no hurry to find out. I identify as human. I am a Zen Buddhist atheist who loves God and believes that Jesus Christ died for our sins. I am whatever you need me to be for you to listen when I say we deserve better than this, and we are capable of better than this.
It's just a ride, and we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. Thank you very much.